Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer. I was like, why is my microphone so low? I remember why my microphone was low. I was playing Visions of Mana earlier, and I was like this while I was streaming, so I just pulled it all the way back here. No, that's fine, that's fine. We had a finally somewhat busier week this last week, a bunch of interviews coming out of Gamescom. And something I want to try to do a little bit more frequently is to post a few shorts every week. And not just like clips from, outright clips from Twitch, but things that are actually edited or like original video ideas that I don't think are long enough to be an actual full video. And a lot of people seem to be enjoying them on both socials as well as in my YouTube short section. They actually all did fairly well. So I'm probably going to be doing that a little bit more just because people seem to enjoy it. And I can throw those together pretty reasonable time. And it's just a little different way to flex. If I'm feeling creative for something, that's a different way to flex that. But anyway, we've got our Q&A and I want to get that done. So I did go ahead and look through the questions. It's going to be a rough week because there's a lot of questions in here. I feel like I'm not the person to ask, or they're going to have some similar answers, so I may end up skipping some because they're so similar. I don't normally read them outright. Sometimes I scroll ahead and check to see if any of them need me to click read more. If I don't click read more before I start recording this, sometimes read more gets broken on YouTube and I can't actually see the entire thing. I've actually answered questions that are just like half missing in previous Mondays with Mr. Happy. So I'm warning you now that I don't think I'm the right person to ask some of these questions, but I'm gonna give it a shot all the same. So with that, thanks to the sponsors over on Patreon for supporting. Nobody has to support the channel. You support it just by watching, just by liking, just by putting comments and asking questions below. That is more than enough. But if anyone supports those other means, of course, you've got thanks from me as well. With that, let's see if I can do this Q&A myself, if I'm qualified enough. Man, it's funny. So I scrolled past the comment and it said DSR Phase 6 is a wall boss. I didn't think about that because obviously, I was thinking of the end of the phase where it's like one's in the wall, one's not. But then in the rest, it's two bosses in the wall. We haven't really had the two bosses in the wall thing before. So it kind of just left my mind that it was even a wall. Yeah, we have. That's the one wall boss, even if it's like not quite the same thing as like the traditional one. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I don't know why I went through every phase of my mind. And that one I was just like, no. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. Hi. You go into a deli and the owners recognize you. True story. This happened to me because my uncle owned a deli. And they thank you for your famous Happy Brambles. That they never did. Saying you can have your own sandwich named after you in the store. What would a Mr. Happy sandwich be comprised of? I'm ultra lame with sandwiches. I don't like mayonnaise. I'm a mustard guy. Mustard and horseradish are like the two things that I'm going to go with. I'm also definitely a roast beef kind of guy. So honestly, for me, it's nothing special. It's just some hot mustard, some horseradish on Italian bread with lettuce, tomato, pickles, roast beef. You know what? Actually, let's spice it up. Let's do like a wet sandwich where it's not just roast beef. Let's get like a French dip style beef, with it, dipped in the au jus. And yeah, I don't know. I'm simple when it comes to sandwiches because I was always, I don't know, when it came to like sandwiches and anything on breads growing up, I was super lame. You know what? I know why. So my family did something really weird. They like segmented all of my food growing up. So they would like give me like my protein on a plate and then a vegetable in a bowl and then like a carb, like potato and corn, like in separate bowls. I didn't get everything on one plate. When it came to putting together sandwiches, I essentially was not used to the idea of combining foods. Like now I can do it, but I don't make sandwiches very often. So I'd get a hot dog and I would just get a plain hot dog growing up. Now I would throw, ketchup, mustard, relish. Like I would throw a ton of things on a hot dog now, but growing up, yeah, I didn't do that. And I just don't make sandwiches very often. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello, my friend. Hello. two things, a response and a question. First, the response. You mentioned that SMT5 was your first mainline entry into the series. You want to go back and finish it. My personal recommendation, if you're okay with doing so, would be to start on and play the enhanced. Oh, no, Vengeance is the one that I played, and I did set it to the new story. It's just that it was for a sponsored stream at a time where I didn't have time to actually play through the game because other things were releasing. So, yeah, I played through the first, like, I don't remember how many hours, but I was like, oh man, I love that this game like gets going really quick and it still has all the fusing. You know, I mean, obviously there's a lot of similarities between Persona and SMT because Persona was a spin-off of SMT. Like that's how it, before it became its own thing officially, it was part Shin Megami Tensei Persona or Persona Shin Megami Tensei, whatever. But yeah, I like that it didn't take me like 2 hours of going through high school classes and stuff before I started getting to actually play the game. And since I can comment on it now, Metaphor actually is a pretty good balance of the two. It's a lot of cutscenes and story at the beginning, but it still gets you into the combat sections fairly quickly and makes them somewhat frequent in between cutscene sections. I'm curious how that will pan out later in the game, since there is the time management aspect in that game that's similar to Persona. So I wonder like what your spare time being spent on is actually going to be in the grand scape of that game. But yeah, no, I did play Vengeance. What is the question? What are your favorite jobs from each of the 5 roles? I think somebody asked me this like 2 weeks ago. What did I say? I think I said Paladin for tank. I said, God, what did I say? I honestly like, I don't even remember. It's clear that I don't care enough because if I can't even remember what my answers were, then I like, it doesn't matter, I suppose. I think I said for Fizz Range machinist technically, but I don't really like playing it. Paladin's the same. I tend to play warrior. Healer, I think I said sage, although I play all of them except Astro. Caster is black mage. Even after the changes, it's still kind of my favorite. And melee was monk. Yeah, that sounds about right. I think that's what I answered last time. If not, then it's so close, then it's interchange. It depends on my mood, I guess. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey. Speed Arcadian is my first time clearing a tier without using Echo. Congratulations. And first in general since Shadowbringers. Nice. After 4 grueling weeks of PF. Feel like I've improved a lot over this 4 weeks, but there's something I wanted to ask that can hopefully help me improve further. I'll tell you what, the fact that you're even asking proves to me that you're better than most of the party finder. So let's see if I can help. Main question I have is about cooldowns. I find myself sometimes in a situation where my cooldown comes up right as I'm about to press a GCD. Is that a situation in which it's best to drift 0.5 seconds or delay my GCD to keep the cooldown rolling? So first, what is causing this to happen is a bit of a question mark. One, I don't know what your ping is. So ping could cause clips at other parts in the fight that cause this misalignment. 2, your skill speed. It's possible that whatever skill speed you're using or spell speed is not ideal, and I would look into that. And number 3, just drift it. Fortunately, drifting a buff by half a second is not that big of a deal, because by the time the entire fight is done, you probably haven't drifted it very far. The only time drifting is a really big deal is if you drift so far you lose an entire use. A great example, so when I play Bard, honestly, a button that just like leaves my mind because it's so boring is Sidewinder. So sometimes, for some reason, I just don't press it, and I delay it like, 2-3 GCDs. Terrible. You never want to do that. So much so I should honestly change my UI so I don't forget about it. I don't know. It's just like, it's a button that's just so uninteresting to me, so unsatisfying to press. It's like it just leaves my brain during busy moments. But then I have a choice. I can press it during that drifted time, which will still fall into buffs later as long as I don't continue to drift it. Or, some people in their brain, they go like, oh, whatever, I'll just hold it so it's like lined up with 2s properly. If that would cost you a full use, that's generally not worth using. You could argue that making sure, if it's completely out of buffs and not just like later in buffs than it's supposed to be, that, warrants the argument of losing one to ensure that you're getting a fully buffed one for the rest of the fight, depending on how long the fight is left. But that's what it always comes down to. It's, will this cost me a use? Or will it be a potency gain? Can I make my mistake? Like, what is the best way to optimize on my mistake? Whether or not this is a mistake, again, is a bit of a question. But you're fine to just delay it that 0.5 seconds. Rolling your GCD is generally more important because your GCD lining up with buff windows Keep in mind, your GCD lining up with buff windows is not just your buffs. We're talking about the buffs everyone else has put out. So you getting all of your GCDs in that window is more important than being off by half a second with an off global. So I would definitely make sure that you keep the GCD rolling and delay by half a second. It's not that big a deal. It happens all the time in Party Finder, especially. You just kind of get used to it being a thing, and it doesn't cost anyone anything there either. So you will be A-okay. Hashtag Mondays with the answer guy. Hey, that's me. Hey, Haps. Hi, I have a fun question for you. I swear, hear me out. I don't like it when you have to say that before I read the actual question. The upcoming U.S. election... Oh. Which FF character would you vote on if they ran for presidency? I don't know. They all suck. I wouldn't trust any of them. Like who do you like? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. They all suck. None of them are good at that. None of them. I don't know. I don't want to vote for a Final Fantasy character. That's first of all, that's a write-in ballot in this particular case, and I ain't never doing no write-in ballots because there's no point in doing. You don't feel good about yourself, so I'm not doing that. So they're immediately just not getting voted on. So at that point, no, I'm not voting on any of them. I see a bunch of comments talking about the playlist plugin. I just in case I think there are a couple of plugin related questions somewhere in here when I was scrolling through. Keep in mind that a plugin is essentially laying something over the game files, whereas the game having to incorporate features suddenly creates a whole different dynamic about how the code interacts with everything. You can break things you have no intention of breaking very easily when it comes to incorporating stuff into game code, which from what I remember them saying is a big problem with a playlist feature as they incorporate it into zones that aren't inherently built for that kind of thing. So yes, it is absolutely doable. I think they've said it's doable, but not a priority. But it's not the same as just doing the plugin thing. Doing a plugin is always going to be easier than literally than ever incorporating it directly into the game. And if you are not someone who does either dev work or IT or program, then it doesn't seem like it would be that way, but it always is. I promise you. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hi. Hope your week has been good. Solid. Honestly, this is less of a question and more of a vibe check. It does seem a bit weird to you that Square Enix has only spoken about the 24-man Savage in interviews. So funny thing, Gamerant had an interview, which blows my mind because I didn't think that people worked at Gamerant. I thought it was only AI. And apparently, again, I can't trust their article because it's them. So I think it said that 7.1's 24-man was part of the Shades Triangle series, but 7.2 was the field area. I don't know, dude. It's really confusing. We'll find out about it in the next live letter, but that would make some sense. They did also say, so I'd assume, doesn't it seem weird they've only spoken about that? They have said several times there's unannounced content, battle content that they want to try out in Dawn Trail, and that was a reason why they may or may not do Deep Dungeon, even though they were currently planning it. It's possible that it just falls in that umbrella. It's a really exciting thing to be able to throw to people as a piece of news that is a surprise later versus, us finding out about it, 9 months ago and then but can't wait for Savage 24-man and 7.1. You know what I mean? So yes and no. It's one of those things you can kind of keep in your back pocket and blow people's minds at some point closer to the actual patch cycle. They may not have even been 100% committed to the idea when they were working on it. Obviously, they've been working on it for some time, but they may not have been confident enough to share more details about it. Final Fantasy 11 24-man, they want to make sure there's a lot of focus on. Obviously, Fru, they want to make sure there's a lot of focus on. So I'm going to just wait to hear more about this because I still don't even trust what I'm actually reading on the internet, even though I believe Ken's interview where it's asked about, he did clarify that he didn't even originally ask about it, but that Yoshi P brought it up. Ken left a comment on the video, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it said. But that either way, I'm just going to wait for the news at this point. But I'm not that surprised because we've had major features kind of show up in live letters all the time. So this would just be another one of them. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, hi, hello, hi, hey, how are you? I hope you're doing all right. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Been playing since Heaven's Word for the first time and decided to try out Savage, and I'm loving it. Something I've been noticing as a new Savage PF raider is that the absolute hurdle to overcome is the adapting to the lingo, etiquette, and culture surrounding PF. Was wondering if you had any tips or tricks, maybe even potentially an idea for the encompassing beginner Savage Raiders guide to PF video to help. I thought, say there is that video. Doesn't Miz? Am I? Comment under this video. Doesn't so I know there's a Reddit guide to raid terminology somewhere, but is it Miz who did? No. I'm sorry, it's not. No, Miz didn't. I think Sayori did one, didn't she? I'm almost certain Sayori did beginners, but then again, I don't know if it's specifically about lingo. A bit of a confession. I rarely actually watch anything Final Fantasy 14 related on YouTube, so I'm kind of digging into my memory banks with this one. But I think Sayori has a video on exactly this. Now, it's not to say that I wouldn't make it with, you know, the experience that I have. You know, it still could be a good idea. I've considered it in the past. But this resource exists. I know for a fact this resource exists already. Do's and don'ts is do the mechanics and don't screw them up. That's really the only do's and don'ts that matter in the PF. Do the mechanics and don't screw them up. As long as you're doing those two things properly and do play your job correctly and don't grief. Honestly, it'd be funnier if this was the video that I did, the do's and don'ts, but it's like the most common sense things, and it's just like pulling up examples of those things. Oh man, that's a good idea. I like that. I might make that like a short or something though. People are always asking me about the do's and don'ts of Party Finder in Final Fantasy 14. So here are a few quick tips. And I'll go with, might have just struck genius. Hey there, Mr. Happy. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Now I feel like that's my whole name. I'm actually Mr. Happy Mondays with Mr. Happy. That's my middle name is Mondays with. With the next expansion likely giving us another tank, do you think they should lean harder into dividing tanks into two groups like healers? We already sort of have this with Dark Knight and Gunbreaker having busier bursts and Warrior Paladin having more defensives, perhaps dedicated main and off tanks. No, I think every tank being, like, the community determining that a job is better or worse in main tank or off tank, I think is fine. I don't think they should. I think it's better for them to just make a tank, focus on what makes a tank, and then, since 8.0 is supposed to be bringing a bit more individuality to the jobs, focus on that instead of dividing them. What makes that tank stand out? What are its strengths? Does it have any weaknesses? Like, focus on that and don't focus on creating a category. I don't think that, I think it worked for healers, but I don't think it's necessarily beneficial to a role to follow suit. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Hello. Hi. First time asker. Welcome. Huge fan from Brazil. Welcome again. I'm sorry. Well, I'm actually not sorry you don't have Twitter anymore. If anything, you're better off. So I'm gathering a few friends to blast through all Savages from Coils till Arcadian since we've done none of them. The question is how the new classes after Realm Reborn impact new strategies in these content, or do they make no difference? So it's not the classes. While I do think like Gunbreaker and level 70 content, for example, is stupid. There's several jobs that are absolutely stupid in 70 content. The bigger thing is that a lot of those fights have changed since they initially released. I mean, Gordius and Midas saw nerfs, you know, either right after they were done being content or even in the middle of them being content. Coil saw massive nerfs across the board, especially in second Coil. And the power of the jobs, even if you were to only use a Realm Reborn jobs, has skyrocketed compared to those days. The amount of healing, the amount of damage that we have. There are some things that aren't. I think mitigation might be a little bit tougher than it was back in those days. I think the way that certain abilities have moved around. But I mean, I guess it's more so you rely very heavily on Reprisal, Addle, and Feint, and not a whole lot on anything else. You definitely need to make sure you have shields in some of the really older content. But no, it's not just the jobs. It's just everything is so much stronger that you're probably going to massacre those fights, even at minimum item level, no echo. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hi. Here's an extra hello if anyone was rude this week. Not yet, but thank you. Have you seen any confirmation anywhere for the final part of 7 Remake going to be PlayStation exclusive? I think it's just, we were told that the entire series for that was going to be PlayStation exclusive. Now, I know Square is trying to get away from that, so maybe they're renegotiating terms. But no, I mean, as far as I was aware from like just from the initial announcement for Remake, hi, Aloha, I was under the impression the entire 3 games were PlayStation exclusive. I just don't think they've explicitly said it since like Rebirth came out or anything like that. So I don't have a confirmation, no. Hashtag Monday with, for some reason, maybe it's the comments, or maybe I remember reading through these and being like, man, I'm not going to be good at answering some of these. Maybe I just haven't gotten to them yet. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Oh, here, look, good thing you gave us the spare hello, because in the previous one, because here we go, no hello. Can you explain some of the common abbreviations on party finders for raids like CCWW and SSWW? I've never seen, I mean, CCW would be counterclockwise, SSWW, south, southwest, west. I mean, what could that be? Alarm pheromones too? I've never ever seen CCWW and SSWW. Maybe because I just know the fights, so I don't like think about reading them much anymore, but I don't know what those particular ones are. I can tell you CCW is generally counterclockwise. I don't know what and then I've never seen SSWW before, so I got nothing. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi with the DT. How easy would it be to execute Dalskip and Alexander? I'm assuming you mean T. I don't know. Has it changed much? I mean, I'd assume you're still level capped. You still have the same jobs. Obviously, Pictom. I don't know how strong Pictomancer is at level 80 or Viper at 80. I mean, I'd assume it's the same as it has been. Maybe it's easier. Maybe the potency buffs made it easier. I don't know. It's not like I've done it. So, question mark. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, howdy, good day, salutations, and aloha. Listen, if I didn't already have the spare hello for the previous one, you got it covered. Hope all is well with you, the team, and the cats. Yeah, Aloha's not doing so hot. He actually has to go for a cardiologist appointment on Wednesday because they found a murmur in his heart, which hasn't been good for my mental, but here I am. 2 questions. 1, has the dev team ever given the criteria on how they balance jobs in the past? For example, if a job is selfish, should it do more damage than the classes that provide utility? If a job is difficult to play, it should do more damage potential. If a job provides a lot of raid utility, then the personal damage will be lower. They have said things before, and I think they're nonsense most of the time. They, for example, for a really long time said Fizz Range has the advantage of being able to hit the boss from any distance, and they have utility, so they do less damage. Then all of Endwalker happened. Everyone can hit the bosses all the time, and they still didn't do anything with Fizz Range. And then they've said things like, you know, a job is too easy to play, so it shouldn't do a lot of damage. Yeah, but then people stop playing those jobs, and those jobs are considered to be not meta because they don't do enough damage. And then they've tried to fix that, and then they run into the issue where they don't overbuff the jobs that are more complicated, which they also sort of want those. It's never been consistent. So they have given us criteria, and some of it's along the lines of what you said, but we have very rarely seen that design realize what they say it's supposed to be when we actually get into the game. And 2, if you were given guidelines on how, if you were able to give guidelines to how the jobs in 14 should be balanced, what would they be? I just don't think they need to be as far apart. I personally think in terms of our DPS, that should be the end number that they care about, like internally. Just look at how much mitigation any individual role is providing or any individual job and balance around that. I don't think machinist needs to be really low in the DPS, for example. I think you can make that closer to the melees when it's played and performed well. Yes, I know it has dismantle. Yes, I know it has tactician, but I also actually, yeah, I guess technically they're all about the same now with the Fizz Range. I don't think the Fizz Range need to be that much lower than the melees. I don't think Summoner and Red Mage need to be that much lower than the melees. Maybe a little bit because they do have more on average, but they don't need to be as far down as they are. I think that that's really the big thing. I just think all the jobs can be closer and it's not that big of a deal. I shouldn't have to see the conversation of should Fizz Range be replaced with another melee every single expansion, because they just want to keep them down in the ground because that's where they just think they belong. So, yeah, I would. That's about the big thing that I'd like to see change. And Summoner and Red Mage, honestly, too. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Greetings, Mr. Happy. How you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. I've recently started doing Extreme Savage because you have mentioned several times the first Savage tier will be the easiest. So I jump in and have a lot of fun seeing people repeatedly die to the same mechanic and manage to down the boss with someone died for at least 3 times. However, the question I have is about the Alliance raid. I personally used to enjoy Stormblood Heavensward Alliance raids. However, after the nerf, they have lost their charm. Things die too quickly to see everything the boss can throw at us. So what can we expect in the upcoming Dawn Trail Alliance raid? It's too much to hope that we will return to the glorious period where players can see all the mechanics from the boss. So they have said, and I made a video, you asked this question before I made the video, to be fair, that they are aiming for a total of 3 wipes as you're going through the new Alliance raids. Now, it's not made clear if they expect everyone to wipe 3 times on each boss, or 3 times throughout the entire run of the alliance raid as they go through the first time. But they are looking to bring back a mild amount more stress, which means we should be able to see all the mechanics, and they should be a little bit more stressful than they were, especially in Endwalker. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Ayo, Haps. Hello. Hope your week is going great. It's going, other than the Aloha news, yeah, it's going good. Question for you. I'm struggling to get over the mindset of being okay with abilities. Oh, good. We just had a question about drifting. Most jobs I can comfortably do an opener, a little bit of practice, but I'm in an actual fight. My 246 re-openers tend to be a mess with abilities coming off cooldown. Just a tad too late and end up a GCD or 2 behind, which eventually snowballs later in the fight. Coming up a GCD or 2 behind. So they shouldn't be coming up any amount of GCDs, and I quote, behind, unless you have too much skill speed or spell speed. Because that's why you aim for certain skill speed and spell speed tiers, is to make it so that doesn't happen. So I think you have too much of that stat. Because otherwise, all that matters is that they are not off cooldown for very long. So like as soon as a 2-minute buff is available, it should be pressed in your off global, as long as it's not going to clip your global. And then you go through like the same order of them that you would normally at about the same points, about the same distance. Like, for example, if 2 of them are normally like 2 GCDs apart, then every time you go to do them, you'll probably do them 2 GCDs apart, you know, as long as you're keeping to that regular practice. So I'm not sure why they would be behind if you are activating them as they're becoming available. So that's, I guess my advice is to make sure you're doing that. That's the most important thing. And like I mentioned earlier, if they're drifting slightly, yeah, it's not great, but it's not the end of the world, especially in this tier. You just got to work at it a little bit more. Maybe I imagine this. Maybe did I look at the wrong video? These were all easy questions. I have no problem answering. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, hello, hiya, etc., etc. Hi. Hope you're having a good end of your week. I got into a bit of an argument with a friend of mine about the state of Fizz Range as a role. My friend was arguing range aren't doing enough damage, said they needed potency increases across the board. Tried arguing that range is very obviously making up for their lower damage with party utilities. Yeah, no. So the problem is that even with those things, okay, let me explain to you as a Fizz Range main what happens 99% of the time. My entire group goes together, comes up with MIT plans, figures out where we want the feints, where we want the addles, where we want the reprisals, what healer buffs are being used, you know, what shielding is needed, is there going to be a Caracole on anything, where's the deploy low going, where are the wings going on White Mage. And then I'm like, so what do you want me to do? And they're like, you'll figure it out. They just don't even bother. Like every group I've ever been in, top 10 clearing groups historically, have almost never actually asked me where my MIT is until after we've already like come up with a plan. They'd be like, "Oh, can you shift that over here?" Like, I'd be like, "Yeah, why didn't we talk about that originally?" They just it's like Fizz Ranged. What's it called? Utility is the afterthought. I remember during T, I got asked specifically to Curing Waltz on Dancer at a specific pulse point going into the final trio, the damage check at the end of the Alexander phase, the phase 3, I should say. And I was shocked because nobody ever tries to ask me where my Curing Waltz is going to go. I just kind of know what to do. So if that's the case, clearly they don't mean enough and they should probably do more damage. Hashtag Happy Bomb Holtstrat. No. Greetings, Mr. Happy. Hi. Static recently began top prog between reclears. Week in now and already hate Looper. Tether suck. Almost to phase 2, though. End of phase 2. Thank goodness. Question. For the future Arcadian fights, do you have any kind of beast you think could make a cool idea for a feral soul? There is only one correct answer. And yes, Morbull is... Okay, Morbull is another correct answer, but come on. Red Chocobo. They got to do it, right? Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi there. Hi. Hope you're doing all right. You too. My question might be kind of dumb. Maybe this is the one. I swear there was a question in here where I was like not confident I could help with it at all. So I've recently acquired a golden certificate from Chloe's Wondrous Tales. Congratulations. I know I should wait for the next raid tier to drop to find a buyer for it. But my question is, how does one sell these to said buyer? So you can usually find people closer to a raid tier coming out looking to buy them in the party finder. I believe there are also raid discords that very specifically have sections where people can go to advertise. They have gold certs available. Now, I haven't ever seen those channels because I don't join any of the raid discords. Somebody in this comment section will probably have the correct answer, so I would scroll through it maybe a day or two after this comes out. But I'm almost certain that's how most people do it. You're not supposed to advertise that you're selling them in the party finder anymore. You're only supposed to advertise as a buyer. So I'm almost certain that that's actually what it is. Might even be a subreddit also that has a gold cert like pinned. Maybe there's like a rating subreddit that has a pinned post for people to post that. I don't know. It's got to be there somewhere though. All right, this one doesn't have the hashtag. If you don't mind me asking, what do you eat to keep your diet? I just eat. I don't have like a diet. Like I had what did I have? I had a thing of Mentos the other day, and the day before that I bought a box of cookies. Like it's just like I don't really care that much. I just make sure that I eat enough protein in a given day, a lot of natural carbs, like I eat a lot of pineapple, strawberry, kiwi, blueberries, raspberries. Like I eat a lot of those, some bread as carbs also. So it's, you know, some different types of carbs in there. And then, you know, I keep my fat content, like not even that low necessarily, but like not crazy high unless I'm picking out on like cookies or something like that. I just work out. That's it. I just work out and I just don't overindulge in sweets or snacks or anything. That's all it is. I just want to take that before I scroll down to this monster of a question below it, which I was going to start with and then just answer the question, but I decided to do this. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Haps. Hope you're doing well, but hi, by the way. Been a while since I posted in one of these. Want to get your feelings on this and general thought process if and when this might happen. So I was honestly rather annoyed to see they repeated the same mistake with the launch of the original new races of Vieira and Hrothgar and the very limited options with hairstyles. Wait, launch of the original new race. So are you referring to like way back when, or are you referring to now them releasing like female Hrothgar as like the updated gender? That's not made clear. Since they have more hats than they did when first released, these races to me, but Hroth is worse off given the hairstyles are stuck to the type of face. Choose you can't play. You can only have 4 new hairstyles. Those 4 are 2. There's so many parentheses here. I can't even keep track of it all. Wait, this parentheses never ends, and then another parentheses begins. Huh? Because he was like, aside from the 2 with the new X-Pack that were unlockable, but then there's no end parenthesis. With those 4, just the 2 with the slight alteration. This goes for all faces. Wanted whatever hairstyle I want from the new race to be tied to the face. Female Hrothgar launched with this context only has access to new styles plus whatever they gain access. I've seen other Hrothgar faces use the restricted hairstyle via other sources. It looks perfectly normal to me, just what gives, but that's my minor rant. Hey, how do you feel? I don't care. I play a Lalafell. It should have been abundantly clear that I don't care. I want the people who care to talk about it, but I don't care. So I have no opinion on it. Good luck. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hi. I'm not sure if you've seen the recent interview with Yoshi regarding ideas for 8.0 and beyond. I have, but I wanted to know what your thoughts on him considering the Warrior of Light becoming a Shogun and a Hingashi. So keep in mind that interview is not him saying that they're like considering it. It's more so him just kind of spitballing things that's like, I mean, we could do this or we could do that or, you know, we could do this. He's not saying that they're gonna do that or that like that's the plan or these are like potential. He's just like saying things. And that's what Yoshi P does. And he actually kind of gets afraid of saying things like this because people then go, oh, so that's what they're doing. And that's like, no. He's just like trying. You ever just like have a conversation with someone, you just spitball some random shit and it's not like the actual answer. That's really all that he's doing here. So it's not even that the article question is clickbaity. It's just that Yoshi P's he's just answering the question candidly, not as like a teaser for things that they're actually going to do. It's more like, I mean, we could do this, we could do that, we could do that. Who knows what we'll do? I mean, they could, but I mean, why? It's not like I could say no. He said that they could do it, so what am I going to say? They could do whatever they want. It's their game. I think I remember where I started feeling like I was going to be useless in answering these questions. I think it's about here. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, hi, hello. First time asker. Welcome. Every time I watch and listen to these, I always hone in on the shelves in the background. Do you have a favorite item on display? So funnily enough, I don't. So there's a few things back there that obviously I would never want to get rid of. I have my play button and I'm going to have a Twitch Bleed Purple statue back there soon. But every single belonging that's like a collector's item or a plushie on that back shelf, I don't care. Like, I've gotten them over the years just because, but I'm honestly probably selling, like, everything back there. Because after the last several years of just, like, giving my money to my family or, like, spending it on people other than myself, and now I'm just, like, living on my own, and, like, I put myself in a huge hole with the thing with my mother, I want every edge I can possibly get now that I'm also debt free to just start propelling my savings and getting to a place where I'm really comfortable thinking about the future. And I am not much of a material belonging person. You know, I see things and I like things and I like, oh, it would be really cool if I had that thing. I could put it on display. But at some point, I'm going to grow tired of that object because like belongings like that just don't matter. I always say, dude, I'm not going to see this couch. I'm going to get rid of this couch because the only reason I have this couch is because Mel wanted a couch. And then I kept the couch when we moved because I paid for the couch. So the cats like the couch. So that's maybe a good reason to keep the couch. But I don't want the couch. I think somebody said I am the embodiment of men's living space or something, like basically saying that I will always like have a super minimalist idea of what I want. And that's really true. I like having a lot of space around me, but I don't necessarily like that space being filled, or at least I don't like to be the one responsible for filling it. So no, actually there's not really a belonging back there that's like a collector's item that I hold any sort of special value for. If anything, there's one item in my closet that's not on display here. And this is especially prevalent because of recently. So at one of the E3s, when that was still around, they had a Devil May Cry 5 booth. That would have had to have been 2018, I believe. And I had an exhibitor badge. So I went in and I played it. And every time you played it, you got a pin of one of the different orbs, like a gold orb, a red orb, a blue orb, etc. And I played the demo over and over again until I had every pin. And I have that hanging on a lanyard in there. And that's a really cool memory to have because the director of Devil May Cry just left Capcom to start his own studio. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's going to do with his next projects. So that one I would probably keep. I wouldn't want to sell that or get rid of that. But everything back here is just like things I've amassed that have no special or particular meaning to me. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Salutation, Haps. Salutation. Why didn't I put the S at the end? Just completed M4 over the weekend. Grats. This is my first Savage tier with all the talks of it being the easiest for a tier to take. Is the easy being thrown around due to mechanics, DPS checks, or a combo of both? A combo of both, for sure. The second half of M4 is one of the easiest phases we've ever had for a Savage encounter. And the DPS checks, especially in that fourth encounter, thanks to that second phase, are much, much lighter than any Savage DPS check we've ever had. So the answer is both, but that doesn't mean that you should diminish doing it. For a lot of people, getting their first foot in the door, it doesn't really matter how easy or hard the tier is. Once your foot is in the door, now you can start working on the stuff that'll come later. And that can lead to a very prosperous raiding scene where you get to do all sorts of content as it comes out, figure things out. It can awaken the beast in some people who didn't know they were raiders in the first place. So I really encourage people to not care so much about if it's an easy tier. Care about how you feel about doing it. And that's the most important thing. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Greetings. Do you read me? I would like to... I can't remember the rest. Does she say, do you read me? Let's say, can you hear me? Anyways, hello and hi. I hope you're doing all right. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? You doing all right. I'd be curious on your thoughts about what would be better for me to get the tome weapon on, Dancer or Machinist. I cleared the tier week 1, but for first clear in my reclears, I've done the first 3 on Machinist. I would get Machinist. So Machinist may not necessarily be the strongest job in terms of like looking at the raw numbers, but in the PF, if I'm going to pick a Fizz range, I'm going to pick Machinist just because it has the most power to make a difference without needing to rely on teammates because it is a more selfish DPS. So I would definitely say Machinist. Go for that. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Good day. Hi. Wouldn't it be nice if they added a DPS tracker to the game? We've had this discussion a million times, even for a personal one. Even if you have a personal one, people will demand that you share it and the results of it in order to, like, if they're not already running the third-party one, which, to be fair, most groups are going to, then they're going to demand proof of your personal one. And anyone who's unwilling to provide that is immediately going to get the axe. I always say, while it is nice to have those, you fundamentally don't need them to understand the mistakes that you're making in any given fight. They will display the results of the number of mistakes that you made or didn't make. But the game is very much about pressing your buttons in the correct order. And that means there is a correct order, which means if you do it in the incorrect order, you understand that you've made a mistake. And if you fundamentally understand the job that you're playing, then you can identify those mistakes without one. So I have no issue with them doing it. I just know that they haven't done it up to this point, and their reasoning is probably still the same, and so I shouldn't expect one. So looking for mistakes in other ways is more important to exercise now if you don't want to, go get yourself some ACT, than having the actual number. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hi. Hope you're doing good. I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. I'm wondering, as a guy who doesn't play Savage, how much power does one leave on the table by not getting that gear? 10%? I'm mostly just curious in the same tier. So it depends on the job. But here's what I'll say. The real answer is 0%. Because if you're not doing Savage, you're not doing Ultimate, you don't need the power. Is it nice? Sure. But it's fine. Just get Tome gear and upgrade it later. It probably won't be BIS. Maybe you'll have some Alliance raid gear to throw in there, like for, the item levels in between. Maybe you'll grab an updated primal weapon, but you'll probably have the upgraded Tome weapon by that point. And, yeah, it doesn't matter. Because unless you're doing hard content, then you don't need that power anyway. So just focus on having fun. And don't worry so much about what you're not doing. And instead focus on the things you enjoy doing. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Heyo, hi. So, Naoki Yoshida. Why would we call him Yoshi P? Producer. He is the producer and director of Final Fantasy XIV, so he's Yoshi P. Now, I guess because he's also the director, you could call him Yoshi D, but I don't think we want to call him that. Some of you probably want to call him that. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hi. Do you think we would ever see the Legacy Ultimates have their outgoing damage checks increase to match more closely? No, because it's a lot of work, and they're not going to do it. I hate to say that because obviously the possibility is always a maybe. It's arrogant of me to say no. They've just never displayed any sort of behavior other than maybe the mentions in like an interview once in a while of ever doing something like this. So I would say have no faith. All right, these last two questions are walls of text and they hurt my brain as I was trying to read them, so I'm turning them off. So the first question, by the way, person did say morning, afternoon, evening, and the hashtag, so I appreciate them for that, was about what they said at a PAX presentation, where if they received any complaints, they would scrap ideas or mechanics entirely, but then they would actually make knee-jerk changes to certain jobs more recently, and then also make changes without really factoring in feedback. The bottom line is that don't ever listen to the exact words they say and hold them to the exact words that they say, because every individual situation is going to call for a different means of how to approach it. So if they get a mechanic that they do, right, and people say this is terrible, a great example would be Lakshmi. A lot of people did not like Vril, the idea of having to collect the action and then having to use the action. And in fact, a lot of people just didn't like those actions as a whole, the extra duty actions that we were getting, so they stopped doing them. That was clearly a case where they saw, okay, here's a gameplay mechanic. People aren't vibing with it. We shouldn't do it. And they've totally experienced and given us that before with mechanics that just play a certain way and them not doing them ever again. However, when it comes to something more like job changes, like with Viper, they're not going to say, oh, if we get any complaint about the job, we're just going to completely scrap it. They get complaints about jobs all the time. Their role is to make sure that what their complaints they are receiving, are they reasonable or not? So when it comes to something like that, don't just take one statement and apply it across everything. Every individual case is going to be different, whether it be fight mechanics, job design, UI design, etc., etc. It's not a one-to-one for every single thing that they do. And then somebody asked in way too many words why raids are glorified trials. They are. And they're asking, like, why don't they have, like, hallways and mini bosses and stuff? And the fact of the matter is that unless you're going to give loot to trash or mini bosses or anything in between, they are a waste of time. Now, I would love still, even if it's 4 separate arenas, to have my raids all be in one instance. I would totally be down for that. But they don't see the value in adding trash that just stops you from getting to the boss that has loot. And they're not going to give loot to the trash. So that's the main reason why they just have the design they have now. And also a lot of people, this actually, going back to the previous question, a lot of people used to complain about running through useless trash or mini bosses to then get to the boss that has loot, which is why they stopped doing it in the first place. So yeah, they back in the day, they would do like normal mode would have like trash and maybe running through a small gauntlet of stuff. And then Savage would not have any of that, and then they just did away with all of that. Now it's all the way that it is now. So it's actually largely because of feedback, and it's unlikely that they're going to go back and change that, as opposed to doing it differently for stuff like maybe Savage Alliance raid, for example, or like a new large scale thing. like a Delubrum equivalent, where they actually want that specific type of experience because the risk of death is a major, major thing. So the mini boss is now serving as a progress point for the group, which is, for them, I guess, a little more valuable when they design things like Delubrum versus when they design things like an 8-man Savage, for example. And I think there were some other comments or questions that I skipped past. One of them was story related, and I didn't really have a good answer for it. So I wanted to like go back and look at stuff, and I didn't really have the time to do it. And then a few others. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot about the wall boss, man. I just can't believe it. The P6 DSR being a wall boss. But anyway, that is going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. For some reason, it was worse in my head. Maybe those last two were also contributing to why I thought that when I like clicked read more and saw how long they were. And I was thinking like, oh, my brain is going to absolutely shatter when I get to that point. But yeah, that's going to be a wrap. Be sure to ask your questions for next week's episode in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you for the next one. Until then, take care.